You're listening to Scar Survivor Hour on Power 95, bringing awareness, hope, and healing for survivors of child sexual abuse.
And I want to say good afternoon. On the line with us, we have Miss Debbie Ray Rivers and Dr. Alicia Hancock. Good afternoon, ladies. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bassett.
And how
can
are
you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for this today. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
We have Dr.
Alicia, can you hear me?
Yes, she's there.
I'm here.
Oh, good.
There you go.
Hi. Thank you both so much. We want to just welcome everyone to our Scar Survivor Hour radio show. I'm Debbie, the executive director, and our mission at SCARS is to reduce the risk of child sexual abuse in our Bermuda community. I'm also a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I'm a mom of 2 survivors. Dr. Hancock, who's on the line with us, our co-host, she is a SCARS board member. She is a friend and a clinical psychologist with over a decade of knowledge in child sexual abuse. So, Dr. Hancock, let's talk about this show today. I mean, we know that this is a platform, right, to spread awareness and to be an advocate and a voice for those who have been sexually molested, as well as their affected families. We're grateful. I want to say we're grateful to the Conduit Foundation for sponsoring this show. We know that foundations in our Bermuda community, such as the Conduit, they play a major role in helping charities do their job and further their mission. And we thank them for helping us spread education and awareness about child sexual abuse and the devastating effects that it can have on the life of a survivor. So thank you, Conduit, so much for making this happen. Our Survivor Show is about survivors. It's about our journey, our lived experiences, and our truth. And last month, our show was called Males Have Scars Too. And it was impactful. In fact, a male survivor phoned me after the show, and I cried with him. So I can tell you these scars are real. Today's show, we titled Females Can Be Perpetrators Too. And we always say in a SCARS training, child sexual abuse doesn't discriminate. We have female survivors of sexual abuse. We have male survivors of child sexual abuse. We have males that abuse children, sexually molest children, and we have females that sexually abuse children. And today, we're going to talk about a brave Bermudian female survivor of child sexual abuse who was violated by a woman. And she shared her secret with me, and today her experience will be shared with you. We always give our Bermudian survivors choices when it comes to sharing their story. One of the empowerment skills that we teach in our training by the Darkness to Light organization, one of the empowerment skills is called making choices. And making choices is critical for our adult survivors because when a child is sexually violated, they are stripped of that choice of being protected. They are violated, and most times their perpetrators are larger and more powerful, and they have no power when they're being sexually violated. But SCARS can support our adult survivors by providing them an opportunity to say no when it comes to being in a studio. We give them that power, and we give them that choice. But their stories still need to be heard. And today, we're going to give this beautiful survivor a voice without having to use her own voice. I'm going to share her story, and Dr. Hancock and I are going to talk about it. You're not going to believe it, audience. It's hard to wrap our head around the fact that people who we expect to be in a position of trust, we expect them to be caring and loving, can violate and deceive little children. And in doing this work over the past decade, I can tell you there is less data on female child molesters than male child molesters. And I think that's
Absolutely.
mainly due to what we, right? I mean, I think it's due to underreporting, right?
Underreporting,
social biases.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think a lot of times particularly when it's young boys that women that women are molesting, the boys tend not to report it for reasons that we can get into. But in particular, I think women perpetrators believe that they can get away with it, a lot more. So, and little girls, I think it just leaves little girls very, very confused. And there are many out there. It's just, I don't think that it gets reported. Particularly because of the role that, women are groomed to play in a child's life in particular.
Yes, those caregiving roles. For example,
roles,
babysitters.
Nurturing roles. Mm-hmm.
Nurturing roles, babysitters, teachers, family members, right? And you're exactly right. We as a society tend to view women as nurturing, which is why it's so difficult to wrap our heads around a grown woman in a caring role sexually violating a little child.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a term used
go
as
ahead.
A mother molester, right? So, and that's a pretty that's I think covers most of the women child molesters. And unfortunately, it can comprise a significant portion of female child sex.
Are you there, Dr. Hancock? Can you hear me, Mr. Bassett?
I can hear you. I think she's having issues with her phone.
Okay. Well, let me just pipe in and say, most of the studies indicate that female offenders make up between 5% and 15% of all known child sexual abuse perpetrators. But some studies suggest even lower rates than that, especially in official reports, arrests, or convictions. But what I read is that abuse by women is believed to be significantly underreported due to societal assumptions that women are inherently nurturing or incapable of any type of sexual aggression. But that certainly does make sense, right? And let's not forget, listening audience, that when a child is being sexually violated, it isn't always about aggression. Many child molesters, male and female, tell children what they want to hear, that they're pretty or they're smart or they're handsome. Or they might make the child think it's a game, that it's okay. Or, as we've heard from many survivors, the molester threatened them if they revealed the secret. But perpetrators, I can tell you, use tricks because they can. And children are just too young to understand that they are being deceived. But we know that there are many reasons why survivors stay silent about their childhood experiences. And lived experiences of child sexual abuse vary from survivor to a survivor. But as we know, the result is the same: emotional trauma, pain, and scars. And before we share this precious, beautiful survivor story, I want to remind everyone that our show contains sensitive information and it's intended for adults only. So please, if you have children around, we're just going to ask you, and it's not convenient, nobody's there to take care of them. We're just going to ask you to please sign off, change the channel. But this show will be on our SCARS website, as all our radio shows are, under the tab media. But it is for adult ears only. Unfortunately, today we're not able to take any calls because there are 2 phone lines designated to Power 95, and both Dr. Hancock and I are calling in, remotely. But if you have a childhood story of sexual abuse and you're ready to share, please call me, 537-7949. And my number is attached to it rings my U.S. number, so you will not be charged. So you can make a local call, 537-7949. You can also email me. My name has 4 letters in it, DEBI, Debbie, DEBI, @scars.bm. And if you have any questions about today's show, please feel free to call me or email me. So, Dr. Hancock, were you able to get back on?
She's going to relocate and call back.
Okay.
She's not there yet.
I'm going to, so just let me know when she comes in.
Sure.
Mr. Bassett, thanks. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to begin with when I asked the survivor how old she was when she was sexually abused. Her response was she was 8. She said, I was 8 when I was first sexually abused. And when we think of an 8-year-old little girl, this is the age that they begin to develop like a strong sense of independence. They're beginning to develop some complex thinking, becoming more aware. They want to be loved at this age and accepted. They are enjoying being around friends. And I read that it's also the age at 8 when little girls will become more aware of social dynamics and the opinions of their peers. And of course, all of this would make it very difficult for a child to reveal this burden, what they're carrying around with them, the fear of not being accepted if they tell somebody, especially if they haven't shared with anyone in their life, right? They don't know what people are going to think. But I hope Dr. Hancock comes on soon, because I do want to talk about the role that this perpetrator played in this child's life. And audience, you're not going to believe it, but this perpetrator was in a position of authority. When I asked her what role did this perpetrator play in her little life, she answered, the perpetrator was a female primary school teacher. Yes, everyone, a female primary school teacher right here in Bermuda. Someone whose role was to create a positive, engaging learning environment. Someone who you would picture, right, to being caring, primary school teacher, caring, tender, patient, inspiring, and I believe most are. But this primary school teacher did not do that. She did not create a positive, engaging learning environment for this precious little child.
We have Dr. back on the line.
Perfect. Hi, Dr. Hancock. Welcome back.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So I just shared with the audience that the survivor that was brave enough to share her experience with me of being sexually abused by a woman. She was 8, and I talked about what happens when little girls are 8, right? And all that goes with that, and of course everything that goes with a little 8-year-old. As they're into this age, it's going to make it very difficult as they're growing and as they're caring about the opinion of their peers and developing this thinking and being more aware and wanting to be more loved and accepted. And this is happening to them. This is going to make it very difficult because they're going to be confused, right? 8 years old.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At 8, obviously, as like the brain starts crystallizing and more complex problem solving and abstract thinking starts to happen in the brain. And so they start developing the ability to think independently for themselves. But when you have something like this happens, I think if it's a male perpetrator, it can be very confusing and scary. But I think for, if it's a female perpetrator, particularly a family member or even a person of trust, it's incredibly confusing. How do you decipher between what's affection and what's, they don't even know what sex, typically know what sex is, much less anything else. So it's very, very confusing for a little girl.
It is, it is. But I shared with the audience, Dr. Hancock, that what her role was in this little girl's life. She was a female primary school teacher. Yep.
And which is... so again, typically the perpetrators are people in a position of trust, and in some cases it's very unfortunate, but they can be mothers as well, mothers, stepmothers, and the like.
It's anybody in a caregiving role.
Yes, yep.
That could be in a caregiving role.
And not every female is nurturing and affectionate, but several are. And so when I was just saying earlier about the whole confusion of, well, is this what affection is? I didn't, so it's got to be incredibly confusing must have been incredibly confusing for this little girl. I've seen teachers hug their students, et cetera, and, show them a lot of kindness and nurturance and affection. But but
Yeah,
for what
and she
went
probably
through.
saw that from other teachers. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
she saw that other teachers doing that, and then that could have been confusing. Like, why is this teacher not doing that? When I asked her, I asked her, when thinking about your experience, what stands out to you the most? And I don't know exactly how old she is, but I would say in her late 50s maybe. But when I asked her what stands out to her the most after all these years, she said, my silence stands out the most. She said, for years, I blamed myself for what she did to me. I thought it was my fault. And because I thought it was my fault, she said, I never told anyone about what she did to me. And I asked her, what made you think it was your fault? And she answered, because she told me it was my fault.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
and again,
this validates what we know.
Yes. Oh, it sure does. It sure does. Whether it's male or female perpetrator, most have the same mindset of being incredibly manipulative and typically manipulating the narrative so that it doesn't blame them. They don't blame themselves for what's happened. They're incredibly tactful at being able to manipulate the situation and the narrative of that child, including their own. Typically a perpetrator doesn't stop at one time, and so they have to consistently be able to manipulate information about what has happened so that they don't experience guilt and remorse for what they've done.
Oh yeah, I've heard shows. I've heard on one of the shows that this perpetrator was blaming the children. Said, well, they wanted it. I mean, my perpetrator told me that, but this perpetrator who had abused many boys had believed in his sick mind that the boys, they were okay with it. I mean, but what also struck me, Dr. Hancock, when I was, doing this, is what it also boils down to is an adult perpetrator teaching a young child what lying is all about.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Destroying their little sense of truth and reality. Because as they get older, they realize it wasn't their fault, right? And then they start understanding, like, this person, lied.
Yep, exactly. But they have to live with that for so many years, and actually, they've had to believe that for that long of a period of time. And it's just it's so sad
living with that. I mean, when I asked her how old do you think the primary teacher was at the time? And her answer was, I think she may have been in her 20s.
Wow.
So a young adult being sexually aroused or power or whatever reason she did this by an 8-year-old.
Likely in a new career.
That's what I was thinking about, right? Taking advantage of a little innocent mind and exerting power and control over their vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, and likely
in a role
too,
of trust.
if she was in her 20s, she was likely new in her career, and potentially had the ability to kind of connect in that emotional immaturity level with the child, to just gain access, to gain her trust.
Yeah.
Versus an older person that's been in this career for many, many years.
Which I understand she stayed in that position for many, many years from this survivor. But, as a teacher, she had a duty to keep children safe. And as we know, teachers are often a child's first line of defense outside the home. In fact, according to much research, children disclose to teachers more than any other profession because that's who they trust, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're meant to be protectors.
Yeah. Yeah. Teachers in general, they have the role of many, many people. They have, sometimes they take on the role of a parent because they're having to regulate children's behavior so that they can teach. But if they have emotional problems and they're having things go on emotionally, say in the home, they're the first kind of the line of where kids show up, right? First thing in the morning. They see children 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. So they're seeing these children more than their own family.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's very easy to get attached, right? It's very easy to get attached to a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I remember being attached to a teacher. Definitely. I understand that. I mean, I did ask her. I also know that you pushed down pain for years, as I did. But I asked her, do you remember the moment you realized you were deceived by her role in your life and in our community? And she said, I realized I was deceived by her role in the community when I was an adult and I had kids of my own and I saw her on the street. She said, at that moment, I thought, how many more children has she violated?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you don't just wake up one morning and think, oh, I have feelings for one of my little students, right? You talk to most primary school teachers, and they'll tell you that is the furthest thing from their mind. They teach kids because they care about them. They work with them because they care about them. It's deception at its height.
They're trying to help them grow, not prohibit them from, from experiencing the ability to trust other people. I think I think a lot of women, unfortunately, can get away with it because, most children can more easily attach to a person in that role of having a maternal instinct on a maternal side than. And to trust, right? So there's also that ability to trust. I think it's a lot easier for little children to potentially trust a female than a male.
Yeah. I mean, this is why we really encourage everyone to do our training, because we have to develop conversations with children. Because a predator can be anyone. We've learned that predators are smart. They're extremely cunning. They'll do anything to gain access to children. We know that through the thousands of survivor stories and people with lived experiences. But I asked her if she remembers if her primary school teacher used any tactics to silence her, because we know perpetrators do. Because I wanted to know, like, what did she do to keep her from not telling? And she said the only tactic, if I can call it that, was that she was nice. As a teenager during the summer holidays, she would invite my sister and me to her house to see her new baby.
Wow.
As a teacher in a position of trust, she should have respected me, she said, and not sexually harmed me. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, and
she
had
a duty.
And that's crossing a line, right? Having a student come to your home, especially from what we know nowadays, that's just, off limits. There should be boundaries that are set in place in terms of what role you're going to play.
Yeah. And we also know that perpetrators have their own children.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They have families. Many have families. Are married, have children. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And they can be nice. They disguise their deception by being nice. I mean, I've heard of another situation where a perpetrator was a teacher, a male teacher, well-liked, well-respected, funny, but their coworkers were sucked into believing that he would never do anything young to hurt a child. But let's be clear. Coworkers aren't invited by child molesters to watch while they do and say nasty things to kids. No. They are craftsmen at hiding and craftswomen at hiding and manipulating the adults, the adults in the child's life as well, right?
Yeah.
They groom the adults in their life.
Mhm. An ugly motive doesn't necessarily mean ugly, an ugly method, right? Ugly behavior doesn't necessarily mean an ugly method. Many times it's the opposite. Right. You have a very kind of slick and any way to draw in a victim, and within a particular motive that is not designed in particularly in the child's best interest. So,
yeah, and this is why
kindness isn't always kind. For it goes back, kind of goes back to, kindness isn't always kind. It's sometimes there's an ulterior motive, and and children unfortunately become victim to believing everything an adult says, or believing that an act of kindness is genuine all the time. They don't have experience outside of that. That's why they're perfect victims, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be that way. That's what we teach our children, right? To be nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right,
to
be kind.
Absolutely.
And it's very confusing when you're little and you have someone in your life who's not kind and who's not nice.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not feeling, a child isn't enjoying that. They're so confused.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why children believe. That's why they completely, believe in kindness. Right? Is because they're taught that if they're kind, good things will come to them, and if other people are kind to them, then they're taught they're taught that it's okay to trust them. But if they're also taught if you're not kind, then you may have a consequence or bad things may happen. And so they only look out for the bad behavior. They don't look out for, they don't have the capacity to be able to read between or to read into kind behavior. They don't have the capacity to do that yet. That's why they're targeted.
Exactly. They're not mature enough to understand that.
No, they haven't had enough experience, so right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and they have to be taught, continue to talk about that. We don't want children to put the fear in them, but we want them to be able to come to us if they're scared or if they feel fearful or, understand that grown-ups are supposed to keep them safe, right? I asked this beautiful survivor, I said, what scars do you think you have from your sexual experience inflicted on you by this female perpetrator? And she said, the scars I have are very deep. Time and time again, I feel shame. I feel worthless. I cry and I hurt from it. I do not trust easily. She said, the sexual abuse I endured affected my relationships. It affected the way I raised my children. I hovered. I was like a helicopter. I was overprotective of my children, and I still am today. She said this teacher was in a position of trust, and she took advantage of me. She sure did, and she caused this, right? But isn't this everything that we've learned about the emotional scars left behind after being sexually abused as a child? Shame, unworthiness, trust issues, relationship challenges, being overprotective with our children, all of that is a result of our childhood trauma.
Yep, and destroys
right?
and it destroys everything about what an intimate relationship should be, because it evolved directly into a very unpleasant experience, and one where she was left with feeling shame and guilt as a result of being convinced that it was her fault. And so many survivors avoid intimacy and sex altogether, especially when it's the same sex. But if it's a same-sex perpetrator, that creates just another level of confusion and shame.
And unworthiness. And, I mean, it just makes me so angry. I try not to stay angry because I'm a survivor, but it just makes me so angry what is taken from children when perpetrators do this, how much this affects us, the scars that are left behind. I asked her, how has this experience affected your sense of self, your relationships, or your body? And she said, it was very interesting, she said, and I totally get this. She said, growing up, I had a hard time expressing no. I was scared to say no in a relationship, even when it was in my best interest to say no. It was instilled in me over and over that what was done to me was my fault. Yep. I believed that to be true. I hated my body, even though I was told over and over that I had a beautiful body and that I was pretty. I had no self-worth of myself. She said being sexually abused from young made me participate in sex even if I was not fully engaged in the act or wanting to actually do it. I felt like I had no power at all.
Wow.
I mean, I totally could relate to that. That was the only way I felt pretty, was having sex. If I didn't have sex, no one could love me. So I completely understood this. It resonated with me. But she also said, she added that over the years, she self-sabotaged by overeating. So she said, I didn't have to hear that my body was beautiful, as it only led to sex, which I did not like. So she would overeat so she wouldn't have to hear that her body was beautiful, as it only led to sex.
Because she didn't believe that.
Wow, Dr. Hancock. Yeah.
Because she didn't believe that. And when you have somebody tell you over and over again that your body's beautiful, but yet you have this conditioned mindset that you of shame of your body, there's you just, there's no way that you can believe it. And particularly because she's probably thinking in her mind that, well, yeah, but they don't know what happened to my body. They would not think that I was beautiful if they knew. So there's the shame around it happening to her. And that, her body was completely damaged as a result of what happened to her. I think.
And I'm telling you, she is beautiful. She is beautiful. I mean, I've heard from victims, so many victims, honestly, over the years, that they deliberately put on weight so they wouldn't be attractive and that no one would find them attractive. That was how they protected themselves. It actually went in the opposite direction. I did everything in my power to look sexy, to feel that self-worth. That was the only way I felt self-worth. A lot of partners, flirting with anyone that I could just to get attention. But, I have also heard survivors
there are definitely those extremes. That's very common. And a lot of it is going to be to either take control of the situation or to avoid being noticed. Avoid being noticed for your body. And so that way, by gaining weight, everybody leaves. In her mind, she's thinking that everybody's going to leave her alone and won't pay her any attention because she doesn't want the attention. Versus seeing your body as something that, it's the only thing that, that I have a value to give to anybody. And so then you see people getting very promiscuous sexually.
Yeah.
Or that even relationships aren't real, right? I mean, I think that mindset can come in as well. Relationships aren't real. So, kind of being promiscuous, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what do I do with my body. Nobody else cared, so why should I?
Yeah. I asked her what advice she would give to parents when it comes to child protection, because I think that's really important. And she said, I would advise parents to do the SCARS training so that they're empowered. I would also say, don't be so trusting of those in charge of your children. Have an open dialogue with your children. Teach them what an inappropriate touch is right from young. Teach your children that it's never their fault and to not keep secrets from their parents, especially when an adult is requesting them to. And she said, I would ask parents to take the time to listen to their children when they talk and pry when they are silent. Yeah, because a lot of children will stay silent. And I thought that was really great advice. But we know that children that children have to be taught this difference between a secret and a surprise. And we talk about that in our training. They need to know the difference. What is the difference between a secret and a surprise? We talk about that. We put it on social media. Very important that we have that conversation with our little ones. But I did, I did say to her, we live in a small community. I said, have you seen this female perpetrator again since the abuse? And she said yes. She said, I saw her on the street across from my job, which was about 20 plus years ago. She said, about 8 years ago, I was invited to a Bible study, and I saw her name on the list. So I declined the invitation, as I did not want to be in the same room as her.
Wow.
I mean, we as survivors sacrifice our own desires to protect ourselves from perpetrators who caused it, caused the pain. How sad is that?
Yeah. Yep. Having to and on the island, it's just difficult, right? There's such a high chance of seeing your perpetrator on the street. And again,
but I asked her how it made her feel. I asked her how it made her feel, right? And she said anger. She said, I felt anger. And her words to me were, she took my innocence from me. Getting sexual abuse has been a battle.
Wow. Yep. Well, it's healthy that she's gotten to the point of anger. Anger, it's not an emotion you want to linger for a long, extended period of time, because it, can consume you and control you. But it's healthy when you're going through the stages of things like grieving your childhood and grieving what has happened to you as a child, because it allows you to feel like, if you can channel it in a way that is helpful to you, anger can be quite motivating. It can kind of push you into doing, better for yourself, or doing, things in the community that make you feel good about yourself. Doing things like this, where she's sharing her story. If she felt incredibly powerless and devastated and sad, or was still in denial, she wouldn't be able to do these things. But she's been able to channel it in a healthy way, protect her children. But unfortunately, it's a lifetime scar. It's a lifetime pathway of trying to undo and dismantle her, the conditioning of how she's been forced to think of herself and the world and other people for so long.
Yeah. As a result of somebody else's actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to feel. Yeah. We can feel. It's like you said, it's very important to feel those emotions, right?
You have to. Yeah. You can't start to heal unless you allow yourself to express and activate the feelings that are there. Whether you've repressed them or not, they're still there. You've just kind of perfected the way in order to repress those feelings until you feel like you want to release them, or something happens, like you might see the person and it just elicits all the emotions you've been repressing for so long.
Yeah. It's okay to recognize those triggers, right, Dr. Hancock? Like, we need to recognize those triggers. Let me try to figure out why I'm feeling angry in this situation. Is my power being taken from me? Am I feeling not like I don't trust, or feeling, like for me, like feeling ugly or feeling unworthy, like recognizing where those triggers are coming from, right, from those emotions? Yeah.
Well, recognizing, where it really comes from. So, there's kind of the surface triggers where, kind of people, talk about triggers, and it's different situations that are happening currently. And it's even more important if you want to actually reduce the intensity of how the trigger makes you feel by figuring out where it comes from. Where did it stem from? And why? Because what you end up finding is a lot of where it came from, is likely from a childhood experience that you had no control over, is from somebody doing something to you, or doing doing things to elicit certain emotions from you that have lingered. And then through development, they just, the thoughts and beliefs and then the behaviors get conditioned, and the next thing you know, you're constantly triggered by a particular situation. But you have to go deeper to figure out why it's there in the first place. Where did it start?
Yeah. Yeah. And then also sometimes dispel the lie that is a result of your childhood pain, right? The lie that's in your head that's telling you you're not pretty or you're not worthy or you can't trust somebody. Like, it's dispelling sometimes your mind plays these tricks on you.
Yeah.
Because of your experience as a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and until you can kind of dig deeper into, well, why do I believe this? Why do I believe that I'm not beautiful? And many times that can require therapy, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to start with therapy, but talking to somebody and trying to figure out, like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Because no child is born to believe that when they first see their face that they're unattractive. No child is automatically designed to believe that unless something has either happened to them or they've been told that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if somebody doesn't trust you. Like I was, I'm thinking about, when you become angry about something, you don't know where it's coming from. And you finally realize that it's from a childhood scar.
Mm-hmm.
You can put, you couldn't, sometimes you need help putting those pieces together of that puzzle, don't you? Like helping you to figure out, why am I so angry with this one person? I'm not talking about the abuser,
mm-hmm.
but it could be someone in your life that, maybe, I don't know, accused you of something and you didn't do it, right? And then that can be a trigger from your childhood abuse because you're not being believed. And then you could have spent years believing that if you told, nobody would believe you. So then when somebody does, even if it's just something in jest or in innocence, it can just take you right back, can it?
Oh, yes. Yeah. We all become, so we can become quite hypersensitive to things that do trigger, particularly a childhood trauma. And so you may not realize it, but if you have a very intense reaction to a particular situation that, may or may not warrant that kind of intense reaction or emotion, that's where, we really have to dig deep to figure out, where is this coming from? Because my reaction was kind of over the top, and I don't understand why this particular person that said they didn't believe me or questioned me, right? Being questioned is creating this very strong reaction or defensive reaction, right? I think a lot of times survivors of abuse have, there's a high tendency to be very defensive. But again, a lot of times it is because they felt alone and they weren't believed, and they were kind of made to feel incompetent or inadequate, and so sensitivity's there at any given moment. So, and also too, other people in our lives can represent those that have hurt us, and we can also have a strong reaction to that. So if somebody did something that the perpetrator also did that was similar, that can create a very strong reaction. But if you don't know that and you don't think deeply enough about it, it's very hard to access.
Yeah. And especially if you don't remember, because I know, as a survivor, like, you push down a lot of this stuff. Like, I don't want to go back there. Like, I don't want to remember that. But of course you're responding because something that you don't even realize happened when you were little is causing you to react a certain way, right? I always think about that now doing this work. Like, is this coming from somewhere else? Yeah,
and it can prevent. The sad part is it can the longer that a survivor waits to get some help or to talk to somebody about it, the more things they're likely missing out on in life. Because this can many times prevent survivors from taking risks and putting themselves out there and believing in themselves to do certain things. So they miss out on a lot of opportunities. They might miss out on college because, if being on the small island is scary enough, there's a bigger world out there. That they're unfortunately conditioned to believe that, well, if the small island can't accept me for who I am, then there's no way that the bigger world is going to.
And will I feel safe?
Well, yeah, exactly.
If I can't feel safe in my small.
If I couldn't tell that this person was a perpetrator, how am I going to tell if anybody else is going to hurt me either? Particularly if I don't know them. Yes. Kind of putting all the pieces together and the puzzle together so that they have a good sense of and an accurate sense of what has happened to them. It requires them to be able to, dismantle how they've evolved into believing everything about themselves, the world, and other people, because it's all distorted. It's more than likely distorted.
Yeah. I asked her, what message would you give to other female survivors who are listening today and who were sexually violated by a female? And she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you also experienced the worst violation ever. It was not your fault. Don't be afraid to speak up. It helps others when we do. We are more than survivors. We are overcomers. How great is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
To overcome that and to know that, look, if we can overcome abuse as a child, we can overcome our constant battle of healing. And it takes time and it takes work, right? I asked her, I know personally that healing from the scars of abuse can take a lifetime. I said, what helps you to continue your journey of healing? And she answered so eloquently. She said, healing from my scars of sexual abuse indeed has taken what amounts to be a lifetime. She said, however, my faith in God lifts me up daily. I am no longer a captive. I'm an overcomer, and I have been set free.
Wow.
I mean, that's hope, right? It doesn't mean we don't have a scar, but that healing can be achieved, right?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Right. Our stories matter. When we talk about when we share our pain, I believe, as we said, saving children, revealing secrets. You're shedding light on the darkness of your abuse. And I'm so proud of her for sharing, and I'm grateful that she shared her experience, because that's not easy, even if you're not telling the story. But it can help one other person. It can. I saw that last month so clearly. These stories are important.
They are.
And if you're out there,
important.
anyone, right? If anyone's out there and you were deceived by a person in a position of trust, a female who should have protected you, who should have nurtured you, who should have taught you and cared for you, just know you're not alone, right? What happened was not your fault in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what a molester told you.
Yep.
You are beautiful, and you are worthy, and you are valuable. Those scars left from a person who violates us, it does not identify us in any way.
No.
Any last thoughts? Dr. Hancock? This is big stuff. I mean,
it is. We probably haven't talked enough about female perpetrators, whether it's victimizing a little girl or boy, but don't think for a minute that women are not capable.
Exempt. Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago I was in a training, and it was one of the first Scars videos, Darkness Light videos that came out, and there was something that was said in the video, and it triggered a childhood memory that I had of an older girl, an older, more powerful girl, an older peer. I don't know if she was 2 or 3 years older than me, but it triggered a horrible memory, and I started thinking, wow, like, was I also sexually abused by a woman? But she was a girl. She was an older teen, but she did things that were nasty, and I was beginning to say, oh, I was sexually abused by a girl and a man, but I stopped saying that because it felt. I remember although I felt dirty and disgusting, I kind of felt a little bit that I contributed a bit and I started feeling really guilty about that, and so I stopped saying that, to be honest. I wasn't sure I was going to share this on the show, but I even spoke to my sweet dear colleague Brenda Lee about it, and my other colleague knows about it because she remembers that this happened years ago in a training. But I was definitely triggered from a memory, and even peer-on-peer abuse when it's the same sex can affect us, right, Dr. Hancock?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's just as confusing,
Yeah.
It's just as confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it was peer-on-peer. I think it was peer-on-peer. It could have even been exploring, if you will. And I don't know if it was before I was sexually abused by this 25-year-old male babysitter, or if it was after or the same time. I just do not remember. But I know I felt dirty and disgusting, and I'm still kind of freaked out when I see her, or feel like not good if I see her on the street. But you get confused when it's child on child, right, or teen on teen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
it can be very
that's
confusing.
A whole new can of worms of the impact that it has. Some similar, some different, and that typically definitely doesn't get reported.
Yeah. And I have no idea if, it was exploring or, I just have no idea. I just don't remember, but I do remember feeling it's a different feeling when it's the same sex. It was definitely different for me.
Yeah.
But, this is why conversations from home are so important, and talking about, boundaries and consent and what's okay and what's not okay, and having someone that you can share with.
Yep, and even parents saying that, to their child, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, making sure that, the parents know that the child has somebody that they can talk to.
Yeah.
If something has happened.
But, they've got to have somewhere to go to talk about it, talk through it, right?
Yeah, I mean, of
that's
course you want your parents to be the first line of but that takes, we talk over and over again about how to talk to your children and what's important, what to do, what not to do, when it comes to communicating with your child.
I want to say to all the teachers out there who are safe and caring and nurturing, thank you for what you do and what you give for the little children of Bermuda, and the big children. Like, your job is so important, and we thank you, because not every teacher is a perpetrator. That we know. But many times perpetrators will hide behind places where they have access to children. And to all the parents out there, do your due diligence. And if you have not participated in our Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training, please sign up. There's no cost to you. Build that trust with your child. Start early. Talk often. And as we close the show, I really want to say to all the adult survivors out there listening to today, we would love to be your voice. And you can phone me anytime at 537-7949 if you're ready, or email me at debbie@scars.bm, because your story matters. We survivors of child sexual abuse are not alone. There are thousands of stories out there. And our hope is that this show continues to encourage and affirm and empower our survivors. Don't give up in your journey. Persevere through that journey of healing because you're worth it. And know and believe that what happened to you as a little one was not your fault. You were deceived, you were tricked, you were too young to understand. And I want to thank our beautiful survivor who shared her story with me. I know her personally. She is wise, she is loving, and she is an incredibly selfless mother and woman. And I say to all the survivors, as it relates to your journey, walk like a lion, soar like an eagle, and never, ever forget how special you are. We must do everything in our power to prevent this sexual violation of the children. We must recognize signs and intervene early and react responsibly. And as we think about reacting responsibly, if you ever want to report a case of child sexual abuse, we are all mandated reporters. If you know a child being sexually abused, please call Child and Family Services Kids Hotline at 278-9111. You can also call the Bermuda Police Service 211 or 295-0011. Both of these agencies investigate child sexual abuse reports together. So again, Child and Family Services Kids Hotline 278-9111, or the Bermuda Police Service 211 or 295-0011. You can also make an anonymous call by dialing 800-8477. And for more information, please visit our website at scarsbermuda.com. On behalf of all of us at SCARS, thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you to the Conduit Foundation for their generosity and support of our work in child protection. Thank you, Dr. Hancock, for your most invaluable wisdom during this show. Thank you, Bermuda Broadcasting. Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Thank you, listening audience. We appreciate you. Our next Survivor Hour show, everyone, is scheduled for Wednesday, October 13th at 1:15. Thanks, everyone.
Today we live, today we breathe, today we know that we are strong when we are weak. Today we trust, we overcome, take every chain that kept us slaves and throw them off. We're not waiting for permission, we defy our inhibition, like our middle name is fearless, unafraid. If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise, by your power we will go, by your spirit we are born. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions. We walk as lions. Today is ours, it's always been. Before we face the fight, we know